Hello everyone. Welcome to the podcast Real Talk with Sudhanya. Today we have a very important topic, movement. I have Willem Hilberdink. He has been a competitive powerlifter, a fitness coach, and owns two gyms which is based on CrossFit and weightlifts. What I really like about Willem's perspective is taking sports and fitness and movement just not from a personal aesthetic perspective, but more of a holistic, social, global perspective. Thinking about sustainability, social responsibility, and community spirit. I am so inspired to keep moving, and I hope after watching this podcast, you are inspired too. Enjoy. Hey Willem, welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you so much.
And I wanted to start right away with a deep question. Because you're here at Real Talk.
Yeah, I was already afraid of that. So just hit me with your hardest, and it can only get better from there.
Yeah, because I know about it a bit, and I wanted to talk a bit more about your purpose in life, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you would, is the question what my purpose in life is?
Yes.
I mean, on a deep personal level, my purpose in life is just, be kind to the people around me, and give people around me the opportunity to be themselves and help them grow, I guess, which I hopefully expect back from people. But I think the way you know me as the owner of the gym you trained at for a bit, is I think having people reassess their relationship to their body and their surroundings, which is a very broad statement. But I think in general, we're raised, even in a relatively free-thinking, progressive country as the Netherlands, with certain scripts and preconceptions about what it means to live well or live healthy or live a kind and fulfilling life. And I think we get stuck on that script, on those preconceptions. And I think on a personal, professional level, having people reevaluate their relationship with their body, with movement and activity, with what it means to be strong, and having people break away from their previous preconceptions about having time to train, about the importance of being active. I think that's where a lot of my purpose is, and that's even when business is bad or troubling or even boring at times with some of the tasks I have. Remembering that purpose of having having people reassess their relationship with movement and being healthy in their own bodies. That's a big purpose for me. Yeah,
that has been my personal experience at Unscared, and the focus that you try to build a community. Around. For people like us who live very busy lifestyles, and especially when you live in a very affluent society where you have access to cars,
food delivery, grocery delivery, all the comfort you want.
Everything is on your table.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it has some bad side effects, I guess.
Yes, and that's something we easily get into. I think especially pandemic also proved that we got used to working from home and very sedentary lifestyles, and it has caused also health effects in a country like Netherlands, which is quite sports-free comparatively to the rest of the world.
I mean, I've wrote my master's thesis during my education on childhood obesity in the Netherlands specifically.
Oh, really?
And that's a thing that grows year after year after year. It's not stabilizing, it's not stagnating, it grows, and it grows.
I don't see obese children.
No, I mean, luckily it's relatively low occurrence, low prevalence in the Netherlands compared to, let's say, the UK or definitely the US.
Yes.
But it's still a growing thing. So, and of course, there's a lot of mental health effects to being more sedentary. And it's really easy to give your kid a screen, or you hear a lot of frustrated boomers talk about I remember when I used to play outside. I mean, I remember that as a millennial too. I played outside a lot, and I think kids do that less. I think that's also part of having more car-centric cities, for instance. But Yeah, it's a worrying trend, and I think working from home is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it can be a good thing. But yeah, it's just another step in a more sedentary lifestyle. And with people having, people lost their sense of community a bit. Back, let's say 50, 60, 70 years ago, people used to go to a
local club.
Your local club, like a bridge club or a football club or anything like that. Or of course, they used to go to church. The Netherlands is one of the most non-religious European countries, and I'm a part of that. I'm not particularly religious myself. But I think people the last 20, 30 years have been looking for communities. And of course, from a business perspective, that was a great thing for us to jump on. But it also fit to my personal philosophy. If people are going to be looking for communities, or as they often call it, their third place. So you have work, home, and your third place. Why would that community not center around movement and activity and getting stronger and fitter and feeling better about yourself? So that was a big motivation behind starting Unscared. What if the place where you met your friends and where the people cared about you was a place that centered around, lifting weights and moving and feeling better about yourself without focusing too much on the aesthetics of it, but more, of the health benefits and the good feeling you get from, taking a bit more of the potential that your body offers you. Because we have great potential to be strong and fit and flexible, and we can do that with minimal time investment. But before this becomes too long of an answer, I think what is very exemplary of what you said, that even working from home, having a car, having all the entertainment you would ever need, not having to leave the house anymore for food or for groceries. One of the things that I find a most worrying example of that is how many people we meet, smart, responsible people we meet at the gym that say, I simply don't have 2 hours a week to train. I don't have 2 hours a week to be active in the gym. I'll go for a lower membership. That's
crazy.
Yeah. And it's a large group of people. And I don't blame them personally. I think it's a society-wide circumstance thing. We are so hyper-focused on being hyper-productive, we have all the tools to maximize human productivity with emails, instant delivery, all that stuff, and we're working harder than ever. And this, of course, is a example of late stage capitalism, where even though productivity goes up and up and up, we seem to have less and less time, and people are often tired or mentally exhausted, and going to the gym, having to go through that artificial adversity of a tough workout, that's just a lot of extra stress for people. I don't blame people personally for not taking those 2 hours, although of course it helps if people would take their personal responsibility with this. I think it's a symptom of what we created in our society, where there's a lot of ways to comfortably, mind-numbingly spend your free time, which is way more attractive if you're being worked to death in the office every single day, where leisure time is seen as being lazy, where
sitting
having a hobby, creating art, is seen as something that you should earn first by working your ass off. And of course, creating extra adversity through a hard workout, a hard lift, whatever, isn't the most attractive thing. And I think that's where that's something I care about a lot.
Communities like you need to come through.
Exactly. It needs to be something that you're really looking forward to, like a night out with friends. Or it needs to become something that is such a set thing in your routine, like brushing your teeth and getting dressed in the morning, or taking an hour to eat with your spouse or partner or friends. It should become just as much of a relaxation, energy-giving, not energy-taking thing of your routine. But I think we need to change, not just on a personal level or in gym industry level, but on a lot of levels to achieve that. So it's a long road ahead.
Yeah, because like some of the points that you covered about the community spirit, and also focusing on being what you mentioned in the first place, to be kind, but to be kind to yourself, and movement being such a core, I would say even fundamental part of our well-being, to be even productive or transactional or even great at work in the long-term sustainability.
Definitely.
It's very core, but how I see most of the health industry operates is like, okay, to look good, to have more muscles, for external reasons rather than having a more holistic, sustainable,
Yeah.
healthy attitude towards fundamentally moving.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned a few things, and I think there's three really clear things in the fitness industry that put me off and that we would never do with Unscared. The first of all is the big Globo gyms. They are huge, often the publicly traded companies that have huge profit margins, that have an insane amount of real estate. Every country in Europe has those, whether they're McFit or Basic Fit or whatever.
Yeah.
And they operate as a business. So for them, keeping costs low, making it less attractive to become a fitness coach, because it is an insanely badly paid job, even though it is one of the most important jobs right now, if you ask me.
Right.
So they are always cutting labor costs because they want to make their shareholders happy, and they need volume. So they need lots and lots of members to pay for their good real estate, to pay a good dividend. So what they do is they understand human motivation. They sign up a lot of members in January for 1 or 2 year contracts, and then make sure that they don't show up too much. Because they're and that's their business model. We chose a different business model, and I'm not gonna shit too much on our colleagues and competition. So that's one thing, making fitness a business of volume and low costs. We make sure that all our members actually show up, and if they don't show up, we pull them back into the gym, and we pay our coaches very, very far above industry standard, which isn't saying we pay them a lot. But just the industry standard is shockingly low.
But the quality also, it matters how they interact. I really could see the kindness and the overall holistic concern about how your sleeping habits, your eating habits. And what I really loved about Unscared, and I think these concepts should come out more and more all around the world, is less dependency on equipments.
Yeah.
I think that's the only place I have seen that I learned a lot about how to use my own body. Of course, the power of strength training, but also some basic moves that actually you can do, and you don't need all those crazy looking equipments that
100%. So
basically limit your movement styles.
So that actually ties in perfectly of the first example of what we never wanted to become. These gyms often have insanely good machines, insanely good material in general and equipment. We could never compete with them just from a financial thing. So it's not just a philosophical thing that we don't fill up our gym with machines. It's also a cost-efficient thing. But of course, again, if you're already sitting behind a machine all day, your laptop, if you're already sitting behind and using a machine to get to work, your car. Maybe sports shouldn't be all about machines as well. Of course, there's machines that are great. We use rowers and assault bikes and stuff like that as well. But you can get very fit, maybe even fitter and stronger by using free weights or even using your own body. You don't have to make it into a complex thing. You are not using, if you're going to be training for a functional way, learning how to get up when you have fallen down, for instance, learning how to climb a stair without getting tired, you won't use crazy machines. So it's a typical thing that is luckily becoming more and more popular. And it fits into the first example. So just to finish that off, the other two things that we never want to be is what you mentioned as well. It's an aesthetic thing. So starting to look good, especially if you've never worked out or if you've been very under or overweight, before you actually look good to the point where you look like a fitness model, that is a very, very long journey. And like, I don't have a six-pack right now. And when I did, I worked hard for it, and it's not an easy thing for most people to achieve. So if you are results focused, and that's what a lot of these gyms do, they put really hot, great fitness looking model people.
Blame the social media.
On their billboards, and they're like, hey, you don't look like this, come train with us and you will. And they won't, because that's a long journey. So focusing on how good it makes you feel, what your body can do, I think that should always, if you want to get people to be more healthy, active and strong, the aesthetic should always come secondary, but you should still recognize that most people do join the gym because they just want to look better naked, which is a fine motivation. But before you get there, it's a long journey. So you should make people feel the fun community of a gym, the fun of getting stronger and upping your numbers, and the fun of just feeling fitter, because that's so much easier and faster to achieve. You can do that in the first few weeks, but like looking like a fitness model and looking great, that can take years, and that is okay. You know, you don't have to look this way.
More of a byproduct.
And the last thing, which we do see in a lot of our colleagues, is that hyper focus on personal responsibility. So if you can't come to the gym 3 times a week and work your ass off, it is a personal failure of yourself. You are weak, you are lazy, and you are unmotivated. A lot of people are, and if you really want to help them, focusing on that is not going to help. You need to create a way to motivate people from a point of positivity. Come train with us because it's a lot of fun. Come train with us because you will set PRs and meet people that will cheer you on for that. And if you have an injury or you're feeling lazy or unmotivated or weak, we have people that can talk to you without judgment and help you give the tools to still show up at the gym. If you just tell people like, if you don't do this, you're just weak and lazy and unmotivated, that's never going to work for the people that you want to reach. Because people that have the intrinsic motivation, they'll be fine on their own. They'll be fine in a Globo gym for €9 a month. But I think these 3 things, if you ever catch us doing anything like that, just call us out. And I think that's an important motivation for me from the negative part. Like, that's what we never want to be, or that's never how I want to get people to enjoy training or physical activity.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is a global challenge that we have to, just not limited to this country, but also a very big global challenge on how to ensure that we take responsibility for movement and also not make it either, I don't know, I feel it shouldn't be something that, for example, the thought of the normal gym, not the one that you own, the thought of that I have to be responsible, and the whole burden of having this regularity and transaction to take out that mindset and the fun mindset. So what are some of the strategies that you think that we individuals can adapt?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was just talking to you right before the podcast, because I biked over here from Utrecht to Zeist, which normally should be a 30-minute bike ride. It was a bit longer because it's snowing right now. So it was a very pretty trip over here. It was also very frustrating because the roads for the cars, they were all salted and shoveled, and most people were either falling or walking with their bike on the bike lanes because they were not shoveled. So you can still take that personal responsibility and be like, no, I'm gonna not take my car for 10 minutes. I'm gonna bike through the countryside for 45 minutes. But if there is no nudge from the government, for instance, or from the city or whatever, to make it comfortable to walk somewhere, you know. And luckily Utrecht, for instance, does that really well. They have they're broadening their bike lanes, creating extra footpaths, making parking more expensive, creating disincentive to bring your car somewhere, also because the old canals are collapsing from all the car traffic. But still, if there is not an incentive or a nudge created to be more physically active, have more green around, have more accessible gyms, stuff like that, you can throw all the personal responsibility arguments at it, but it becomes pretty tough. Of course, you can do your home workouts and do your online yoga, calisthenics, or whatever class. But we know we've been having this individual responsibility approach forever. Like, people know that they should just eat less if they want to lose weight.
We all know that.
Yeah, people should move more if they want to feel fitter. We all know that, but we're not doing it. So what can we do? I think on a personal level, what you still can do is just make it a part of your routine that is non-negotiable. So when I'm really busy, I feel like, shit, I need to finish this today, or else I won't have time to train. This is too important. But I'm still going to eat in between. I'm still going to have lunch no matter how busy I am. And me and Jochem, my business partner, we send each other our to-dos for the day in the morning, and we always put training in there as well as something we have to do as well. So making it a non-negotiable thing, and just starting like doing that 2 times a week, or just going for, you know, it's a cliche thing to say, but your 10,000 steps a day, and just being, hey, I'm going to go for an evening walk every evening for 1 hour, you know. Just making it a part of your routine, and not either a luxury thing that you need to do or a free time thing you need to do. No, this is absolutely essential. You can work as hard as you want, create as much wealth as you want, have as many friends as you want. But as soon as your body stops, or it doesn't work, or you're always exhausted because you're not active enough, none of it matters.
None of that work matters.
Yeah. So make it a non-negotiable thing that you do. Just start with 2 times a week, or sign up to a gym that has actual guidance, and be like, hey, I want to go here twice a week. Can you keep me accountable? It's filled with cliches, this answer, but like just showing up is what's worth it. And if you feel like you don't have that motivation by yourself, if you have the money for it, pay a coach, or go to a gym that has retention focused coaches, attendance focused coaches. And if not, you know, do it together with your spouse, your best friend, your neighbor, whoever, and keep each other accountable to make this a non-negotiable thing. I think that's the number one thing.
And add the fun element in it.
Make sure it's a thing you enjoy. I think, you could, of course, get stronger and fitter and healthier way faster by doing strength training 3 times a week. But if you dislike strength training, or if you don't have the opportunity to strength train, but you do enjoy walking a few times per week, or doing yoga twice a week, even though it might be less efficient at getting healthier and stronger, I would still prefer that if you enjoy it, because you will stick to it and you will do it more easily. So I think a big focus on personal responsibility is tough, because most people are already personally motivated, intrinsically motivated.
For people who already do it, they are fine. And I really like
And for what it's worth, like, I basically live in a gym because I own 2 gyms now. I've been a competitive athlete for a large part of my life. I completely lost my motivation to train during the lockdowns and became very unhealthy in a very short time, like relatively. And I still need to push myself to join a few classes a week. Everyone has this, and shout out to the people who don't. But this podcast isn't for you, you know.
And that's very interesting to hear, that, you know, somebody like you who's an industry leader, a fitness leader, and also gets into this loop of not working out or not feeling motivated enough, especially because of pandemic, because the particular style that we had was to go to a gym or public places and stuff like that, and that was taken away. And that you also go through it. And there are this whole set of people who never want to enter gym, and the thought of going to the gym actually scares them off.
And like for a long time, rightfully so. So like I've quickly talked about like what the government can do, and they can do a lot. They can really do a lot.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
It's about what the gym industry can do, you know, so making more responsibilities and all that stuff. And of course, the personal level, what businesses in general can do. Is also an important thing, but we can touch on it later. Like the gym industry has a very, very, very big responsibility as well. For a long time, it wasn't inviting at all to go to a gym. You know, it was often seen as a vanity thing to do because of gym marketing. Hey, come to the gym if you want to look good, which Dutch people, you know, they try to stay away from vanity a bit more. And they haven't generally been very inviting places. So the gym industry itself needs to reevaluate, like, how can we make people feel good in a surrounding, for instance, where a lot of people are already fit and enjoying fitness. If someone hasn't worked out a day in their life or have been sitting on the couch for 10 years, how can you still make them feel comfortable? Because more people have a trauma from gym class than fond memories, you know, being picked last. The only time we're forced to go to the gym is during gym class in high school, usually at a time when your body is changing, you're insecure. So a lot of people have this almost inherent trauma from gym class. You know, and we during the first day of our coach course for new coaches, we always say like, hey, you have a lot of responsibility in this job. Because if someone finally makes the decision to go to the gym for the first time, and I've said this in a lot of podcasts and interviews, so sorry if you've listened to this before, if you screw up someone's first experience with that, you make them feel like the class idiot. If you make them feel like they're not good enough for this, if you make them feel insecure, they might never go back to a gym. You are ruining someone's life, basically. Because never going to the gym again, comorbidities of that, your relationship with health, fitness in your own body. So the gym industry has a huge responsibility there to get people into the gym and keep them in the gym. And I know from a strictly capitalist financial perspective, getting people to sign up and then not show up, that's how a lot of global gyms operate. But you are exacerbating a problem for which you are selling a fake solution. If you really care about people's health, keep them in the gym. Make sure they come back, make sure they start enjoying it. And don't let them pay for something that you're scaring them away from. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, and how do you cater to different people have different body types, different, I would say, needs, why they want to come to gym, and also different limitations, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody's into CrossFitting. Not everybody, I think everybody should do fairly bit amount of weight training. Just for basic, as a basic. So like as a fitness leader, how do you think that, especially for kids, they would have a different need. For females 100%. Who are in specific periods of their lives, times of their cycle, during pregnancy, they would have different needs. I don't think so they can CrossFit to level, or I don't know, people with different challenges or differently abled. How can we build a society which encourages movement at its core?
So for me, it's it's basically what we touched on before. So on the one hand, it is not saying like, hey, this kind of training is perfect and this kind of training is bad. From the strength training background I'm from, we of course would joke about people doing Pilates, with the little weights and stuff. It is just as valid, as long as people move. As long as people are put into positions that are slightly uncomfortable enough that their bodies and minds will adapt to become slightly better, it doesn't really matter what you do. So that's the first step, saying like, hey, whether you go for a walk, whether you play tennis, or whether you lift heavy weights, doesn't matter, because it's better than doing jack shit. The other thing is we could have picked a lot of disciplines to make the core products at our gym. We, of course, picked strength training for me personally, very obvious reasons, because I think it's one of the best ways to be time efficient and create, benefits for life. We also picked CrossFit. And there's a lot to be said negatively about CrossFit, obviously, but it's also very open source. So every CrossFit gym can make of it what they want. One of the things that really triggered me when I just got into CrossFit is that they, in their training guide, say, hey, different people don't need different types of training. They need it at different degrees. They should differ by degree, not type. So the 80-year-old that trains at Unscared or the 28-year-old, they will be doing similar exercises in a similar time frame, but just with different loads, with different intensity, with different tools, obviously. But their training will look fairly similar in the type of movements they do, for instance. Same goes for someone who's pregnant. We luckily have pregnancy coaches. But the key here is understanding the core of a training program. So not looking at, let's say, a pull-up as having to pull up your entire body from the floor until your chin clears a bar, which very few people can do when they step into the gym the first day, but a way to pull your body up, whether your feet or your knees or whatever are still on the floor, or whether you're being helped by a band, or whether you do this with a set of rings instead of a pull-up bar. Just seeing which muscles it engages, which skill it develops, and just working over your head. It doesn't matter if you can't do a pull-up yet or not, or if you could ever do a pull-up, but that is a very basic human movement that we need to do. It engages a lot of muscle. So looking at the stripping all the preconceptions away, which I will probably come back to a lot during this interview, and just looking at what's at the core and how can we achieve that. I think that's a mindset I used for training, and our coaches I think coaches and guidance, that's where it's at, because a good coach can say, hey, this is the workout, and I'm going to give every people the same stimuli, whether they're 80-year-old, whether they're pregnant, whether they're a world-class athlete already, or whether they just step into the gym.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I think CrossFit leaves a lot of room for that and emphasizes that a lot. And for all the criticism I personally have on CrossFit as well, I think this is one of their absolute strong suits. Right. Training in a group, having everyone do the same workout at their own level with a coach who understands different needs. That's a golden ticket for me, and that's why even in our new gym we're still having CrossFit as the main service, the main training strategy.
Yeah, indeed. And also what I also learned from CrossFit is indeed all the basic moves without having, depending on your own body, and also because it's a group thing and there is a constant comparison. There is a lot of, I would say, I learned also to be more solid within and not constantly compare and beat myself up. That is something also I learned, because many people also don't show up because of that. I believe that, okay, this is competitive or I need to compete. So there is a huge mental training also that's being done, because depending on, especially for females, because of the hormonal changes, your strength actually changes throughout the month.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's luckily, that's also, CrossFit has made strength training for women a lot more acceptable, or at least visible.
Yes.
And it luckily opens up that discussion as well. I mean, it would be weird for me to talk like an expert on this, because I have luckily never had my period. But it's a relatively new field, and just now it was like national news that our champion speed skater, Jutta Leerdam, talked about that she was had her competition on her period and it limited her. And it was almost front page sports news that she talked about it, which is such a strange thing. This is not a new phenomenon, this has been a thing forever. And I think having people, not pushing fitness into a cookie cutter thing. This is the training program you need to do, because we all have the same goal, which is look like a fitness model. You need to see like, hey, why do I want to start training? Am I feeling physically bad? Am I feeling mentally bad? Am I just missing some extra activity in my life? Am I missing a sense of community to do something fun? And once you've answered that question, you can basically figure out like, hey, there is a bunch of stuff I can do to achieve this,
right?
And
also respecting what I also learned through this journey also is to respect your own body limits as well as to push them as well. Push them to a limit, but also to understand that then there are certain phases where you feel very strong, but there are sometimes at the same time you don't. And to understand why and to respect that and accordingly push the limits as well.
Yeah, you just talked about competitiveness, which is, we have competitive athletes in the gym. We don't necessarily focus on competitive athletes because of my personal philosophy, people who are competitive level athletes, they'll be fine, whether they are training in a global gym or with us.
Self-motivated.
They're
self-motivated.
And I think there's always this risk. How can you push people to become better? To become stronger, to become more motivated? You have to have some kind of competitive element, or at least a results-driven element, but that can also be very detrimental to it. Like if someone has a feeling that they're losing in the competitive race, or they're not achieving their results at all or fast enough, they can demotivate as well. So this is a margin.
Or hurt themselves.
Exactly. And when you are just starting training, when you haven't done any physical fitness stuff in a long time, or maybe ever, the margin between doing enough to get fitter, stronger, have better endurance, whatever, and how much training you need to do to get injured, that is a very wide margin. You will get injured, of course, very easily, but you would have to do so little to get fitter that you can train relatively sub-maximal and relaxed and get better at first. Just even when I do a competition, I first have an adaptation phase in my training program. So I will do a new training program and I will take it easy for the first 3 or 4 weeks to just get my body adapted to the exercises, the training frequency. So starting slow is good. The more advanced you get, you have to have more stimuli. And you get closer to that overtraining part. Of course, that shifts a bit as well.
Yeah.
But when you're just starting out with training, find something you think is fun. Don't ignore pain and injuries. Don't look for muscle ache each and every time. The first few times you train, you will have muscle ache anyways. It's just your body adapting.
Yeah.
But yeah, training through pain or training through an injury, there's nothing cool about it. It's really fucking stupid to do, because being.
That's very good point. To respect again, if there is, because pain is also there is a reason that something is not normal.
Yeah.
And how to respect that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is for me a very interesting topic, how you deal with pain, injuries, and training. My parents, my brother, my wife, they're all physical therapists.
So tell us more about how to handle.
And I'm not, but injuries and pain, I think just like we talked about, if we want to change the insane direction we have right now with becoming more and more sedentary, more and more obese, less active, more unhealthy. If we want to change that, of course, there's an individual thing. Just start, find your motivation. There's a governmental thing. Make movement accessible, affordable, and give, just change our cities a bit to bike, to walk.
Have calisthenics parks, which Netherlands has amazing.
Shovel and salt your bike lanes in winter. All that stuff. There's, of course, the fitness industry itself, but then I think we're missing two important ones. One is the corporate world in general, which through insurance companies tries to kind of get people to work out more, through businesses knowing that their sick leave will go down if people work out more, but they're really half-assing it. It should cost like no extra money, so usually it just goes to the cheap gym memberships, which are, to me, the one side of the community that's not doing enough. But there's also physical therapists and the health industry in general, or the medical industry in general, which all know if people do strength training or if they do physical activity, all their comorbidities will go down. They will have less bone density issues if they get older. They will have less chronic illnesses. We know this not from a few studies, but from literally thousands of cohort and meta-analysis. We know that more physical activity, definitely from the baseline we have now, will have great mental and physical health effects. However, I still see a lot of physiotherapists, luckily not the ones that we work with, that as soon as someone has some pain, they have a bum knee or a bad elbow or their shoulder hurts or whatever, one of their first interventions is to tell them to stop working out or to stop doing the physical activity that hurt it instead of working around it. If I have a minor injury or pain, which luckily I don't have that much, but whenever I have it, the worst possible outcome for me would be able to completely stop training because of that injury. So how is it still such an acceptable first intervention, the worst possible outcome, just stop working out, just stop training, for physical therapists and medical staff? It's changing a lot, luckily, but I think that is one of those like 5 pillars where there needs to be a change as well. If someone got hurt working out, don't tell them to stop working out. Tell them to change up their exercises. Tell them to work around it.
Work around the affected area.
Because inactivity, I mean, of course, if you have broken your neck or something, take it easy.
By default, you can't.
But even if you've broken both your legs, like start training your upper body, That's an extreme example. But I think, we are in pretty big trouble from all possible metrics, from activity rates to obesity rates to chronic illnesses to comorbidity and to mental health issues, which we also have. If you ask any psychiatrist or psychologist if starting physical activity has a adverse or positive effect on someone's mental well-being, even if they have pretty serious mental issues, they will all say that it has a positive health effect. So there is such a big incentive for literally everyone, I guess, to have people move more,
and it's a bit paradoxical, right?
Because everyone is pointing to another way. I will often, as a fitness industry guy, will also point to the government and just be like, well, they should make it easier. They should subsidize like more expensive gyms because they actually keep people in. I, of course, am very biased on this topic. But I will also point to corporations and be like, hey, insurance companies, they need to do more preventative healthcare because it works. Or I would point to a big multinationals and be like, hey, if you want your sick leave to go down, if you want your people to be slightly happier and
be more productive,
give them free time to work out. Or even, look at Japan, where they often have like morning or lunch gymnastics classes and shit. That's perfect.
Really?
Yeah. But that's such a long way before we're there. So I think we need to stop finger pointing and just make sure that if it's on an individual, business, gym industry, medical or corporate level, we all need to pitch in. And we all
make movement core.
Yeah, and not feel attacked, even though, I'm definitely attacking some stuff here, but, make something of it. Because I'm not saying this because I dislike other people. I just think we could all greatly benefit from it. And it's extremely frustrating to not see that happen. And of course, we make mistakes too. We are a relatively expensive gym because I believe that coaches should be paid well. They have a huge impact on society. And, the gym shouldn't just be, a thing where you just offer access to a bunch of machines.
But a more holistic experience.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. And also get to learn so much of basic movements. What I learned also at Unscared is how to have a lot of basic, which I thought I know how to do correct squat, but based on my body type, which is very hypermobile, I shouldn't do deep squat because that's actually not executing
and me
my
as a very stiff guy, I should do more deep squats.
You have to do deep squats because you're stiff, but I'm hyper flexible, so which I have to do more controlled ones, which I got to learn, which is I feel that very basic knowledge we should know in school.
Yeah, of course. And this is such an example of what I said, like we would come back to, which is stripping everything away and looking at what are we trying to achieve here. Take away the scripts of what you've learned, what is normal, that people who go to the gym are just vain assholes, for instance, or that, physical activity like we learn in primary, elementary or high school is playing softball and doing rope climbs.
Well, in India, we don't even do that. Like, at least in my childhood, I didn't do that. Especially for females, playing games is like a luxury. It's not a mandatory, whereas I think that it should be mandatory almost and part of a fun culture as well.
And that's the thing. So if we look back at, I think learning a basic squatting pattern, a basic hinging pattern, a pressing or a pulling pattern, we never learned any of that in high school or primary school. And it's the most basic human motor function we have, and not learning how to squat or hinge, like do a deadlift or a kettlebell swing properly. It's insane that we learn like very complex algebra or trigonometry and not that.
It's so funny.
And that we learn the rules of softball in nothing. I mean, I don't want to shit on softball. It's a great sport. But it's a very big staple of Dutch gym class. Okay. And you need to learn the rules for some reason.
It's all about game,
So, and like, we, of course, that's what I was saying before. Like, we, of course, also, by being a bit more pricey and stuff, exclude people, but we try to get everyone who does come in to have to learn these very basic things and repeat them ad nauseum. So that people will also, once they leave the gym, maybe teach other people how to properly hang on something or how to properly pick something up or squat a dumbbell or a barbell or a mat ball or whatever. It's very basic human knowledge, and there's a very big, there's a lot of pros to being able to teach that. So again, it's stripping everything away and being like, hey, what are very basic life skills, or what do we, our policy and what we learn in schools is created by people who went to school like 40, 50 years ago. And the world has changed very fast in the last 40, 50 years. We are both from the generation where we were taught in primary school, like, you gotta learn how to do quick math. And I still think it's good to learn math without a calculator. Like, I definitely want to say that. Because we would never have a calculator on us the entire time, which is a very cliche example.
But now we have smartphones.
Yeah, exactly. And we have all the knowledge at the fingertips of our world. I still think it's good to learn doing math from your head, of course, or to learn how to write with a pen instead of typing. I still think that's a good thing. But it does show how we are still being very outdated in education in general, and physical education 100% falls under that same umbrella.
Very much.
So instead of saying like, hey, how can we get good at a specific sport? Because right now, if you spend a lot of time in sports, people will often say, hey, you're not going to be a professional athlete. You're not going to make millions of this. Like that is the prime focus and results of doing sports. So why are you spending so much time on it? Which is what a lot of our competitive athletes who are, definitely not making a living of being a competitive athlete get to hear as well. Like their production of monetary value is the thing there. Which is not, we need to go back and teach people like, hey, it's not just fun. It's also healthy. It creates a lot of benefits and it's relatively easy. It's
very basic.
You can make rocket science out of kinesiology and movement science and health and fitness studies, but the basics of it, if you do some like rotational stuff, if you train your upper and lower body with pushing and pulling and squatting and hinging, you do that a few times per week, and you train hard enough to have a stimulus and not so hard that you get hurt, injured, or die, you are probably already doing well. It's not easy to start doing it, but it's very simple. So
and the basic theory that your body is such a kind of a machine or an instrument. The more you use it, the better it gets.
And it's so much fun. Your body is so amped up for this. And it's sometimes pretty scary. We get 25-year-old guys in the gym, and it was pretty hard for me to see that a 25-year-old guy in the prime of his life, just filled to his eye sockets with testosterone, is unable to do a push-up. And I would never make fun of someone for that. But not being able to press or pull up your own body when you're in the prime of your life, and this of course doesn't apply to men in general. The same goes for women. I mean, you've seen how crazy strong women we have in the gym. And just seeing a lot of young people not have it in their system as an automatic thing, just like they would brush their teeth or eat enough food, to be able to do some basic fitness skills, that is pretty scary. And I think both things don't work. So we are still a lot of people are still demotivating women to do a lot of strength training because you don't want to look like a guy. And that's anchored in the same bullshit of, if you are a guy, you will have to look super muscular or else you fail. It is, of course, oftentimes easier for a man to achieve that kind of physique. But we have created a society for ourselves where it's really pretty tough to actually move away from all the easy and comfortable options and get there. So either shaming women for doing it or shaming men for not doing it, both is the wrong approach. Make fitness fun, make it accessible.
That's a really good point.
Hopefully someday affordable, even though as one of the more expensive gyms in Utrecht, that's a very hypocritical thing to say.
But you have a very exclusive concept, but I love your views, and especially what I learned also. I just not learned, I saw it, that for females, how strong females are, like physically, and how as a society we have totally not, I would say, revered it and hence lost it. And but still it is possible. And in fact, what you mentioned, many people have told me like, why do you do weight training? You would look like a guy. I'm like, even if I try my hardest, I can't. I can't. And that's such a stereotype and it's a reason for like being lazy, or I don't know, for not doing it or discouraging women from being strong.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the strange thing. Like we often get people saying like, hey, I want to get strong, but I don't want to look strong as a woman, obviously, often. And of course, if someone has their own, appearance, aesthetic-based goals, I would never shit on someone for that. If someone wants to look a bit more fluffy or a bit more skinny, or if they want to look strong or not, like that's a personal choice. And if it comes from a healthy place, I will always respect that. But we have this weird idea that, that there are certain hyper-masculine traits, and that being very strong or muscular falls under that. I mean, women have often a slightly lower capacity for it, but I mean, I've trained a lot of competitive female athletes, and most guys that would say women shouldn't look like a man. By their own estimate, they don't look like a man then, and these women do. So it's a very strange argument. If a woman can train and get strong and look strong, that is not a male or female trait. That is just a natural human trait.
Yes.
And I think that's something to again, we need to strip all our preconceptions, scripts, and notions down and look at, hey, why do we look at this way? Yeah. If your body is capable of doing 10 pull-ups, it will most likely look capable of doing 10 pull-ups. And
be proud about it.
I know a lot of men and a lot of women that can do that. So putting these back into masculine or feminine traits. I mean, I'm a very progressive guy with that in general. I like Roman history, for instance, which has been totally co-opted by, old right misogynists. They often forget that the regal color, the imperial color for emperors back then was purple. And they would not wear pants. They would wear beautiful purple gowns and dresses. So strip your ideas of what it means.
Next time I see you.
Yeah, I would look great in it, but I am not confident enough for that yet. And I mean, I don't want to speak from a very preachy perspective. I still also have a lot of preconceptions on what it means to be a man or what it means to be a woman. So I don't want to, be too preachy about that. But I think within the fitness industry, this is a very prevalent preconception, and oftentimes
the macho guy has to have,
and oftentimes that's embedded in the same stuff we just talked about, which is what to do, know how to train, and as a man, if you cannot do this, you are a failure, you are a weak, you are not worth it. And I think that helps no one. I think it's a very masculine male trait to look at someone who can do all these things and provide them all the tools from a place of kindness to also have them get strong and feel better about themselves instead of shaming someone into it.
Wow, I love that. I love that idea. I so love that. To own your own body type and to enjoy the movement that actually honors your body. I have only one final question, which is on the other side.
Yeah.
I think, at least in Netherlands, we deal with that overtraining.
Yeah.
And that's also a bit of a output of the whole obsession with looking, how aesthetics.
Yeah.
And I would say that countries which are very much obsessed with like sports, like here, I also see that they also end up overtraining, and also they have like the importance of rest and importance of respecting the injuries. What do you think about? What's your point of view on that?
I remember years ago a Dutch newspaper asked to do an interview with me about sports addiction as a growing problem among young people. And I was in a really bad mood that day. And I told them to fuck off, because I was like, from all the things we could talk about with sports, you're doing a major feature item on the very small problem of sports addiction, and not like, people not doing enough activity. Looking back at it now, I definitely would not have responded that way. I think it is a serious problem for some people. We see it sometimes in the gym as well. People who we once changed our unlimited membership from 26 times per month, so you would have 5 rest days or 4 rest days at least in each month, which I think is very normal. Mandatory. The top athletes I coach all have a weekly rest day. It's and a lot of people had an issue with that. They struggled, like, no, but I need to train every day. I think that's a very modern problem as well, with that idea of we need to be hyper productive. Like, if I do something, it needs to be my
every day
hardcore grind set side hustle. And I need to be the best at it and not be lazy and
hustle mode.
Yeah, exactly. It is an issue. Usually what our intervention often was especially if it was a person who was pretty new to fitness, wanted to change their life, they were bitten by the CrossFit bug and were jumping into it. Oftentimes the talk we would have is to explain basic training physiology and science, which is when you're training, you are stressing your body, you are creating artificial adversity, a hard stimulus for your muscles, your lungs, your system. your body gets stressed and slightly damaged by that with micro traumas when you when you get muscle ache. But when you rest and you sleep and you eat and you take a day off, your body recovers and it comes back stronger. You know, it's the whole whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger cliche. That kind of works for fitness and definitely strength training. So if you keep stressing and stressing and stressing and damaging and you're not recovering, you're gonna get injured, or you're just gonna do, you know, more damage, or just you're achieving the opposite of what you want. So a conversation I have still at least a few times per year is I see someone do their second class of a day, which we did never allow. Now we kind of do. Some people can handle it, but if you are just starting out and you did a morning training and then you do an evening training, you are still in the middle of your recovery from that morning training. Doing that second training is
gonna worsen.
You're doing detraining, you know, you're cutting into your recovery. So explaining someone the basic physiology of you stress and then you recover and then you're stronger and then you stress again a bit more and then you get a bit more stronger when you recover. That's an important thing. And it's reminding someone of how they felt when they were overtrained or injured, which is, do you remember how much you hated not being able to train? So nowadays, whenever I have pain, also because I'm a bit older and a bit lazier now, I find a really quick excuse to not do that training. But you can almost always, again, unless you've broken your neck or whatever, do something else. Unless you're physically or mentally exhaustedly overtrained, which you can easily tell because you will be a bit more lethargic or very anxious. Your resting heart rate will be higher. Your sleep will be impaired. All these things. Then it's just time to take a total rest. And if rest for you is you need to do something, you're an anxious person like me, just go for a walk outside.
Active rest.
And definitely talk to someone once you can only rest by taking illicit substances, because that's a problem that I've personally struggled with, and that's definitely a thing I still see a lot. People who need to take relaxants or smoke something if they want to chill. I think every now and then that can be fine, but if that's your only way to like give yourself a break or rest, that's definitely something to talk about as well. And I know some people listening to this might definitely recognize it, and that's, you know, if you don't find someone to talk to, like just send me a message. So I think it's a problem, but I think in the light of not training enough and not doing enough, it is a small and manageable problem. And it shouldn't receive too much focus because it can put people off. If you
or make that as an alibi to not move. And here, I would say the message is balance is the key. Like rest extreme is being lazy, basically. Movement extreme is actually you're hurting your body and not helping your body to actually be more stronger.
And working behind a desk or a screen 40 hours a week with 20 state mandatory holidays a year, it's not a very natural thing. I don't want to say that natural is always good. That's, you know, the naturalistic fallacy by G. Moore.
And that's why you would see that corporate industry, because I come from the corporate industry, has a very high rise in burnouts, in obesity, crazy. In mental health, because it's not natural. But we feel that once you have worked, I can literally say what I go through. If you have worked 40 hours in a week, the first thing I want to do is sit on a couch and watch Netflix.
Every real study we've done on the 4-hour work week has a very clear outcome. People are happier, more productive, get as much work done, spend more time with it. Like, there's just benefits to it. But somehow we are so ingrained with the idea that you have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, that we're not getting rid of this. You see the same with discussions about a universal basic income. It will benefit society overall, but the idea that you get money for not doing anything, that's so bad. And I think we have this same approach to work. And I think I've had talks with many big businesses about the idea of starting a corporate training idea, even within their corporate venue, because it will bring down sick leave, it will increase productivity, but it would have to be under company time, and that just doesn't fly often. So I think, like we said before, it's all interconnected, and if we want to make it change, the gym industry should change.
I think we have to
Government should do
work
more
together.
stuff.
I like that idea. I like that idea.
Corporate training facilities, or just in general, corporations, from insurance to big multinationals, they need to change the way they care about their customers and the way they care about their employees when it comes to physical activity. Government has a role to do here as well, and individuals. And right now, all the focus is on individuals. You should just eat less. You should just move more. There's a gym nearby. You are failing because you're not working out.
No.
We've tried that for 30, 40 years. It's not working. So
We have to come up as communities and leaders. That's beautiful message.
I hope so.
Yeah, Willem.
That's a good way to close, right?
Yeah. I think you summarized all the different points that we covered, and I really, really admire your thought leadership in fitness industry.
That means a lot.
Yeah, and I really, really appreciated some of the very key motivations that you gave us. Personally, I really love Unscared.
Yeah, thank you.
And hence I wanted to invite you. And I think and congratulations on your second gym.
Yeah, we literally did the announcement an hour before this. So
I liked it.
Yeah, so I'm glad I could put my phone away for this hour, because it will definitely be blown up. Or not, and we've totally overestimated ourselves, which might be possible as well.
Just an hour.
Yeah, but yes. We're opening our doors April. It's April 1st, but I keep saying early April because everyone will think it's a joke. And so if anyone's listening to this, they could go to unscared.fitness, which is a very convenient URL, and this is my way to sell to my business partner that I spend an hour on this and not something else, because I plugged the gym. So, yeah.
But I love the name also, Unscared.
Yeah.
Respect all.
Yeah.
Fear none.
Yeah. So there's a lot of weird conceptions about being unscared, because people will be like, it's not a real word, and I'm like, yeah, I know, and it's not fearless either. The idea behind being unscared is being very scared of something, but in the process of doing it, becoming unscared of it. And I think that really fits to the philosophy we have and what we talked about. So step into the gym for a first time, and if you feel non-welcome in that gym, it's not you, it is the gym. Go to a different gym. Yeah.
Do it anyway. Yeah, move anyway. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And also what I really loved is that it's much more inspiring for people outside Netherlands, because your gym is, but I really wish that you have gyms all across the world with these concepts.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, someday. But the whole concept of creating a very inclusive community with the whole focus around movement for a holistic health, mental, emotional, physical benefit. It's amazing thought leadership.
Yeah,
so
it changes all the time, because we fucked up a few times too. But that's we're making an
part
effort
of the learning
to try and change it. And it would be great to connect with other businesses on this as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to be done.
A lot. So we'll keep the balls rolling. But for today, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was super fun.
This was a lot of fun. Honestly.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got